MSD families, this is your Superintendent Brett Geithman. We recently had a school safety coffee chat and I wanted to follow up with this brief video as well as talk about next steps. First and foremost, our school safety is our #1 priority. We want to keep our students and our staff safe each and every day. We have a variety of practices and procedures that we are continually revisiting and improving and collaborating with our first responders to improve. So today what I want to do is I want to run through some of those practices so you can get a better idea of what we're doing to keep our schools safe. First and foremost, it starts with social emotional learning and wellness. So we have our practices in general that promote a safe school, but then we also have our responses in the event of emergency. So that's how this talk is designed. So first, it's about promoting that safe school environment. So #1, first and foremost, I have to give a huge thank you out to Spark and all the families that support Spark, because we have counselors at all 3 schools. California doesn't provide counselors at schools, Spark does. And so it's with your dedication and donation to our Spark Foundation that allows us to have these amazing professionals at our sites each and every day. Additionally, we have a safety grant. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that grant in just a minute, but it provides a number of supports here for our students. Universal mental health screeners for grades 4, 5, 7, and 8. A coordinated response to that screening data. Counseling and mental health conferences for our counselors as well as our principals. De-escalation technique training, and this was provided by the Central Marin Police Authority. Trauma-informed practices by Julie Kurtz, a local expert in these practices. Positive behavioral interventions and supports. So ways in which we organize our schools to improve and enhance and promote these positive behaviors. And when we need interventions, we have a systematic approach to intervening. And then of course, a responsive classroom. So this is something that you might have heard of in the past. We had a number of trainings actually happen at Cove when we first opened Cove. And so what we're doing is we've done some refreshers and we'll continue to do refreshers on how do we build that responsive classroom environment. So let's zoom in a little bit on this safety grant. So you might have read about this, heard about it in other circles, but about 1.5 years ago, we applied for a safety grant. We were awarded. It's awarded at around approximately $900,000 over 3 years. The way the grant works is we submitted a proposal to fund certain things. So it's not like we get $900,000 and then figure out how to spend it. It's actually we proposed certain items to happen or certain events to happen, and then the federal government decided to support and fund this specific grant approach or grant proposal that we put in. So it's like 2 different sides. One thing that we're really looking at is safety trainings. So making sure that our staff are up to date on first aid and CPR. We just had a district-wide Stop the Bleed training, and we have all the kits for those. Looking at events like bomb threats, active shooter, wildfire, and then of course a safety care training. So safety care is another de-escalation technique. When we think about social emotional trainings, again, those de-escalation techniques, trauma-informed practices, responsive classroom, PBIS, and then also looking at care for the caregiver. So these are some things that safety grant is supporting. The bulk of it is really infusing best practices and continue to infuse those best practices into our way of being here at LCMSD. So facilities. We have some facilities upgrades that have taken place over the years. We have cameras. We put those in probably about 4 or 5 years ago. We just added more cameras. The cameras, what they do is they really provide us a window to the perimeter of the school, as well as those main, those highly trafficked areas inside each school. You can see the number of cameras per school. What we've also added are monitors in all offices. They're, TV like this, and what they do, they have that Brady Bunch screen with all the cameras. The cameras that are receiving the most motion or action are on the left-hand side. So when office staff are in there, when other staff members are in there, if you look to the left, you're gonna see the most action on that side. It also has facial recognition. We have, police have a direct line to this. So there's a lot of capabilities of our camera, and they're actually in real time. There's absolutely no delay. So these cameras work really well, something that we're proud that we put in, and we're happy to share that those have been upgraded, right, and add more cameras. Fencing, this is something that's talked about on a regular basis and will also be a part of the next steps. So we do have some fencing at our campuses. One thing that we're looking at is establishing a perimeter of our campuses that consists of both buildings and fences. And so it's not necessarily at this moment fencing in our playgrounds, but it's more so when you go to our school sites, making sure there's that interior of the school that has that protected, that you have to either go through a building or go through a fence, or a gate I should say, to enter. Our gates have the panic bars so students can easily get out and staff can easily get out, but it's something that we're in progress of. Some schools have more fencing than others. We have our lock blocks. I think everyone's familiar with those. That makes sure that our doors are always locked, so nobody has to worry about fumbling for their keys to make sure the door is locked. Doors are always locked. There's a lock block. You slide the block, you shut the door. You slide the block open, it keeps the door open. So a really quick way to secure a room. Majority of our classrooms actually have 2 entry points, so this makes it highly efficient. We had those, I think, about 5 years ago or so. Same thing with window coverings. So about, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, we didn't have window coverings at majority of our sites. And so what we did was we added the window coverings. Of course, as we all know, if we are having to secure a classroom, the windows do need to be covered and the doors need to be locked. So we made sure that those were in there. Technology, so this is a big one. You can see our Cove Coyote with their badge. I have my badge on as well. All staff should be wearing a badge at all times. All parents or visitors to campus should also have a badge. The badge they acquire through our main office. It is when you go to the main office, you actually sign in through the Raptor system. It actually does a quick background check. And so that's a really efficient way to, even if it is a parent or whomever, someone that we think should be on campus, it still screens them to make sure that there isn't anything that we should be aware of why they should not be on campus. So we have that to make sure that occurs, so staff know if they see somebody without a badge on, they're supposed to call the office immediately or approach that person, ask them if they need some help, and then direct them to the office to acquire that badge. This is one of the primary strategies. You know, we've talked to law enforcement, we've talked to actually our insurance company who hires law enforcement to do school safety walks and those different things. The idea of this, the active nature of staff taking a look at others on campus and are they supposed to be here or not, and the badge is a great visual for that. It's a huge preventative measure because what it does is it keeps people on alert. Who's supposed to be here, who's not supposed to be here. We do have an anonymous tip line. We do get tips on a regular basis. It's on the homepage of our website. The anonymous tip line can be used for a variety of things. We have students that report concerns about other students, things that have happened that they're worried about. And so parents have used the anonymous tip line as well. They hear something from their child, they go ahead and use the anonymous tip line in regards to school safety. And so that has been incredibly helpful. We have walkie-talkies in every single classroom, so for some reason cell towers, everything's down, we have walkie-talkies that go. We actually have a generator or another, I should say, battery backup for those walkie-talkies. And then we also have Share 911. So this is a new feature that we have. We started it this year. Redwood High School down the street also has it. What it is it allows any staff member to call an emergency from their phone, their computer, or their iPad. And so it's a subscription that we pay for. There's a variety of different things. You have an evacuate button, you have a lockdown button, you have a shelter in place button. And so what ends up happening is if I were to use it on my phone and hit the lockdown button, every single person in my group, so if I'm here at Hall Middle School right now, I hit lockdown for Hall Middle School, everyone at Hall Middle School campus, because everyone has Share 911, gets alerted that there's a lockdown. Your computer screen would actually like turn red, make a noise, tell you to lock down, and then at the exact same time, police are notified. So what this does is it increases that response time. We don't need to call the office to then call a lockdown, to have it announced over the intercom, but all those different steps are now eliminated because everyone is going to know in real time immediately exactly what's happening and what needs to be done. Share 911 also has a communication system built into it as well. With that communication system, what it does is it allows teachers and staff to communicate with one another, so we know, let's say if a student's missing, we can quickly say, is Isla Geithman with you today? And if she is, then the staff can immediately respond so we can account for those specific children. It also can identify where the threat is at. So if, for example, we're at Hall Middle School right now, if there was a threat at the gym, students and staff in the 600 wing are not going to wait in the 600 wing. This is something we've worked on with law enforcement. Students and staff on that side of campus, they're going to leave. They're not going to wait. They're not going to lock down because we know where the threat is at, and they're far enough from the threat that they're just going to evacuate and get out of the school. So there's a lot of things that you can do with Share 911. The biggest thing is the very real-time notification of all staff members and police at that time. We've inadvertently, of course, we've drilled Share 911, but of course, with anything, there's been some accidental button presses on Share 911, and when that happens, it's remarkable how quickly Central Marin Police Authority gets in contact with us. It's immediate. And so, so this is a strategy, again, recommended by our partner, Central Marin Police, and it's been very effective. So you may be wondering what we do in terms of drills, how often do we drill? Because one of the things that we know, that we've been taught through a variety of different trainings, is that the more you drill, the more likely you are to remember what your response is in the case of an emergency. You're not going to remember every single step, but there's going to be some automatic responses that you're going to have simply because you've drilled. One thing that we do monthly is we do a fire drill. So that's required, right? We have to do a monthly fire drill. But what we've built into our fire drill are also a lockdown or intruder drill monthly. In our collaboration with Central Marin Police, one of the newest strategies is that when a fire alarm is sounded and you don't see smoke or you don't feel heat, they recommend that we actually lock down because the fire alarm could be pulled by someone who might want to do harm. And so what we do first is you only exit the building if you smell smoke, feel heat, or across Share 911 or the intercom, you're told to then evacuate the classroom. So all of our students lock down with staff and in the beginning of the fire drill. We do earthquake drills. We have the Great Shakeout. You're probably familiar with that. Some pictures from Great Shakeout. We do 2 to 3 earthquake drills a year. And we also do a shelter in place or a toxic spill drill. If you were here at Hall Middle School, I think it was like 6-7 years ago, we actually had a horse get loose, and we had to shelter in place the classroom so that students wouldn't get trampled, students and staff wouldn't get trampled. So that's, there's a variety of reasons why these things can happen, but again, we drill on a regular basis so that our staff and our students know how to respond. What we also have is, in the height of an emergency, digging through a manual, remembering every single thing is very difficult. And so what we've done is we've actually created an active shooter one-pager. This one-pager teachers and staff have, principals will send out on a regular basis, even though they already have, but it's sent out on a regular basis as reminders. But the one-pager, it tells you the very essential components that you need to know in an emergency. What's the principal's cell phone number? The idea that, again, that we've worked with the Central Marin Police, the first thing that you should do is run if you're able to. So if there is something like I mentioned before, the event is starting at Hall Gym, that means that others on the other side of the campus, 500, 600 wing, they can take off. They have the ability to run. So that is something new. It used to be everyone just locks down. So now it's more about where you are in terms of proximity. So we talked in that one pager, it talks to staff about evacuate first if you can. If you can't, then you're gonna go ahead and lock down. And then your very last resort is to fight. And so that's in our active shooter one pager. We also have diagrams for staff that show safe ways to exit our campuses should you evacuate, right? Where are the default meeting places in our community where staff are gonna run to? And so in those events, they have those maps. Again, these situations, they can be very fluid. We may call different alternative places where we're gonna meet up outside of campus, but we have default in case we don't have that. And again, going back to Share 911, it is an essential communication tool that we have, and we're very grateful to have that, which is also funded by our grant. And so these one pagers are there. Our police partners at Central Marin, they also have our one pagers, so they know exactly what we do. They were a big part in our development of this. We sat down, we looked at each school, what makes the most sense, and help craft these specific documents. School safety is something that, I opened the talk when we did our coffee chat, just sharing, I'm a parent. I have two kids in school, one here at Hall, one at Redwood, and this is something that comes up in our home, right? This is something that our kids think about. Their friends probably think about. Other kids think about, right? To share this. It's heavy, right? Kids, you can't escape the violence that has taken place across our nation. Specifically targeting our students in our schools. It's heavy. It's something that the majority of us, when we were children, we didn't have to deal with this, and now our schools have this. This is as a serious threat. We do everything we can, and we continue to. Again, we are stopping. Right, we're continuing to look at processes and ways to one, look at that SEL, because oftentimes it's catching someone who might be in distress before something takes place, but then also having a response system that's fast, that's aligned with what our police need us to do in this, so that they can circumvent as quickly as possible. We listed some resources here, so this slide deck will be sent out with the video. These are some resources that you might find helpful in terms of talking with your children at home. Again, it's near impossible to shield your kid from any of these, from the thought, right, of violence occurring on campuses, especially as they get older. And these are some tools that you might find helpful in terms of talking with your children. So when we think about school safety here in LCMSD, again, first and foremost, this is our number one priority. And you've seen this in so many different ways, not only when it comes to emergency preparedness, how do we respond to, or how do we plan drills and things like that for acts of violence? How do we be more proactive and taking a look at that SEL, using the universal screeners and having response systems for that? But even going back to the pandemic, right? How do we keep everyone safe? And that's really our goal here. And so one of the things that we know is that there are many parents and community members that are highly invested in this work. They want to keep our schools safe. They're committed to safety as well, and they want to continue being our partners. And so with that, what we're asking is we're going to form a school safety task force. And so again, in the email that's sent out with this video and with the slide deck, there's an opportunity to fill out a Google form to be a part of our school safety task force, and we really hope you consider being a part of that. We know everyone can't be involved, and so what we ask, at least at a minimum, is talking to your kids about safe practices, not only at school, but also in our community. When we all work together, we can keep our schools and communities safe. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. More to come. There's always more to come on this topic. And we appreciate all the parents that were able to attend. And I appreciate you in advance for signing up for that task force and attending to these important safety matters. Thank you.